afternoon. Brad Michaels here with you. Welcome to the Brad Michaels Show. Well, we still have a lot of interesting things going on. Let's get back to Ukraine, Russia, all of the stuff that's going on over there. We're going to show some footage for you here today on today's show as well, but I just want to cover some breaking news. The Biden administration has announced sanctions that are targeting Russian President Vladimir Putin's daughters. They will no longer have access to any of their assets or finances that are in the United States. Those sanctions will hit Maria Butina and Katerina Tikhonova. That's his two adult daughters. It's also going to hit Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin, the wife and children of Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and various members of the Russian Security Council. So that's breaking news on that. Also, one of the mayors, I believe it's the mayor of Mariupol. I hate trying to pronounce these names over there. He said this is the new Auschwitz in regards to, I guess, and I had the article. Let me go back to the main page here. Breaking out of Mariupol. The mayor says this is the new Auschwitz. The Mariupol City Council today accused Russian forces of relying on a mobile crematorium to cover up their alleged war crimes in the southeast port city. And we've known that the Russians, that originally was, those mobile crematoriums were for Russian troops that had been killed on the battlefields because Putin didn't want the citizens of Russia to see their soldiers coming back in body bags. So it was just easier to pick them up when they're dead off the battleground, throw them into an incinerator, and then dump the ashes out on the Ukraine soil. So we know that's been happening. What I'm worried about at this point is that obviously if they're covering up their war crimes, that means that they're taking women and children and non-enemy combatants, civilians that are killed in attacks in the Ukraine, and they're throwing their bodies into those incinerators so that everybody in the rest of the world that's watching what's going on in Ukraine isn't seeing the carnage. Also, according to NATO, they are expecting a major offensive by Russian forces in eastern Ukraine. And this is coming just a week after Moscow had said that it would withdraw forces from the capital, Kyiv. According to Secretary General Sten Stoltenberg, we see that Russia is moving forces out of the north to reinforce them, to resupply them, to rearm them, and then to move them into the east, where we're expecting a major offensive. President Putin's aim is to try to control the whole of Donbass and to establish a land bridge. So this is going to draw the conflict out even longer than it has gone on. And again, Victor, I welcome. Good to see you again. As we've said before, this is hats off to the Ukrainians.
Yeah, it really is a good effort for them. And, I think Putin made a really big miscalculation.
Yeah.
That it was just going to be, and part of that, a lot of had to do with, this administration, giving them, false hope that we're not going to do anything after Afghanistan and after, Crimea and all this other stuff. It's they're not going to do anything. I might as well just take over Ukraine. And turns out that the Ukrainian people and whatever little help NATO and Poland, because obviously they have a stronger interest than we do, has been able to hold them back, which is impressive.
Well, and you mentioned Afghanistan, and the entire withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan by the Biden administration was a complete fiasco.
Yeah.
And you're leaving people on the ground. You're leaving Americans on the ground while you're telling them, at the same time you're leaving them on the ground, you're telling them, get out of the country. But you're not bringing in enough planes, and you're telling them the last plane's going to leave 5 minutes ago. Just a complete fiasco. If you ask me, you've heard me say it before, Keystone Cops. That's what our withdrawal from Afghanistan was like. Also, we're looking here now, the DOJ today just accused Malafayev, I hope I pronounced that right, he's one of the Russian oligarchs, of seeking to evade the sanctions by using co-conspirators to surreptitiously acquire and run media outlets across Europe.
Wow.
That's interesting. But let's just go back to what we're seeing in Ukraine. Any war is bad, but when you start talking about using mobile incinerators, mobile crematoriums, you start talking about the genocide, the war crimes that we're witnessing from Putin's forces. To be honest with you, some of the stories that I've heard, I'm actually quite surprised that we haven't seen more of the Russian soldiers demoralized by all this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You would think at some point somebody is going to say, no, I'm not going to follow that order. I'm sure it's probably happening in certain areas, and I feel sorry for any of those soldiers that do defy orders in that sense, because they're probably getting thrown into an incinerator next.
Yeah, the footage is absolutely horrendous to watch.
Yeah, and we are playing it in the background, so we want everybody to see this, and we want to talk about this more. I'm actually, and I'm happy that I see the fight in the Ukrainians and what they're doing, but at the same token, it's tough. You don't want to see the entire country is just being completely destroyed. By the time this war is over, and it's going to drag on, by the time this war is over, Ukraine's going to be flattened. It's got to completely rebuild this country.
Yeah, to make it even worse, if there's not a peaceful resolution, then this means there's going to be 10, 15, 20 years of guerrilla warfare, of civil war within Ukraine. Say Russia puts a puppet government. Obviously, the Ukrainians don't want that to happen. So it's going to be a war between Russia and Ukraine for 20 years. Guerrilla warfare, urban guerrilla warfare. It's going to be bloody and very destructive.
Well, and that's if there's any cities to go house to house in that type of guerrilla warfare, or if it's just going to be, we're hiding in, the guerrillas hiding in the rubble. Because the images coming out of Ukraine right now, it's devastating. It's just devastating to see. Does this go on forever without anybody else stepping in there? I mean,
it's hard to tell. I mean, everybody's sitting on their hands, because of either they're scared or because they don't want to piss somebody off, or it's not the easy thing to do. It's the hard thing to do. But it's also a very sticky situation. People are calling for a no-fly zone over Ukraine, but that would put us in direct contact with Russia, and that would basically guarantee World War III.
Right, and that's what you keep hearing, World War III. And I understand the no-fly zone. I mean, certainly, if you're going to enforce a no-fly zone, that would mean that you would have to shoot missiles from an aircraft that might be in Ukrainian airspace, but that missile could shoot down a Russian fighter jet that's in Russian airspace, and then now you're in direct contact.
But also, if it's a Russian plane over Ukraine doing whatever, it's going to be a NATO or a U.S. plane that enforces the no-fly zone. So now NATO
and the United States are indirectly, right, we're shooting down the Russian planes, and that's been a red line, basically, that Putin has said don't cross. Yeah. But then again, how often do we sit here? Why are we taking orders from Putin? Again, but I mean, I get it. Everybody's afraid. World War III, nuclear Armageddon, tactical nukes, and those would be bad as well. So he would use those. He's already used a subsonic missile that was capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. That's a first. So it is a tough situation. It's a tough situation. The United States doesn't want to get involved. NATO doesn't want to get involved. We don't want to have World War III. We don't want to have a nuclear war. But then again, at what point do we turn around and just finally say, "Look, enough is enough"? We've tried to get the sides to the table, and the Russians keep moving. They keep moving the goalpost as far as being able to sit down to figure out an end to this conflict. I don't think they want an end to this conflict unless it's just complete surrender.
Yeah, which I don't think it's a possibility at this point. I don't think he can hold Ukraine.
They're not going to be able to hold it.
They might be able to hold the Eastern Front, but
maybe.
Maybe. But other than that, I think it's just too
I don't even think the Russian forces are going to get into Kyiv. I don't think they're going to be able to hold the capital. We've already seen the Ukrainians have actually started counter offensives to push the Russians back. Yeah.
They did there was an attack on Russian soil for the first time, carried out by the Ukrainians as a counter.
Yeah, yeah. So it's it's interesting to see what's happening over there. It's sad to see what's happening over there. And we're gonna keep showing footage here during the show of Ukraine. I had to bring this up, and we've been talking a lot, and this show is always going to concentrate on things that I think that most of my audience is aware of. Most of my audience is probably ticked off about what we see here in our own country, here in the United States, in regards to our opposing political parties. Is Biden a complete idiot, Victor? I mean, he was just shown up yesterday, and he did this on his own. They invited former President Obama to come to the White House and speak, and it ended up being pretty much a joke fest of, calling Biden the vice president and yuck, yuck, yuck. But you got to bring in a guy like Obama to prop this guy up, Sleepy Joe, because I'm telling you, cognitively, he ain't there.
Yeah. When I saw that footage, was footage you talked about, the first thing that came to mind is it really goes to show like the character of, say, Obama versus Biden, right? So if you take Obama, for example, he went on stage and joked around like, Biden is my vice president, even though he's the president of the United States, arguably the most powerful man in the world. And then Biden goes on stage and says, yeah, I am Barack Obama's vice president.
Vice president.
So that goes to show, like, to me, like, the kind of character, like, the submissive, passive, beta character he is. Because if it was, like, say if it was Trump or anybody else, like, say not even Trump, say another stronger character.
Even George Bush.
My joke would have been like, hey, Barack, how does it feel to not be president anymore? Like, I'm president now.
Exactly.
Like, hey, I'm the captain now. Instead of like, hey, remember me, old boss? Like, it shows to me, like, a form of like weak character.
Well, we all know he's weak, but I agree with you. Yeah, he should have looked at him and said, "No, I'm Mr. President.
I'm the president.
Yeah,
I'm not your vice president. You're not even my vice president. I'm the president." So it's like he's a second-rate follower. And that's not who I want as a president.
No, and I'm seeing stuff here now. We're going to kind of move on. There's a lot of different news to cover. There's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about today. And it has to do, I've been talking to a lot of people the last couple of weeks and explaining to them Democrat philosophies, what those politicians are trying to do, where I think they're headed. We are in a midterm election year. And there's a report out today. AG, Attorney General Garland, has been infected with COVID-19 just hours after he had an event with the FBI director. Also, breaking news today, the Biden administration has cut off COVID-19 treatment, shipments of treatments to all states. Now, call me a conspiracy theorist if you want to, but this is a party, the Democrat Party, that they play every single card they can play, and in my opinion, they've overplayed their hand when it comes to COVID, but they're still playing the COVID card. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, because they don't want to get rid of that power.
They don't want to get rid of the power, and here's what I think they're going to do. This is a midterm election year. Right now, they have to be thinking this is going to be a complete bloodbath for them. If you look at, mark my words, I'm going to predict right now, sometime soon, I would say September. By the middle of September, maybe 3 weeks into September, you have to mail in your ballot again.
I wonder how many people are going to comply this time.
There better not be anybody that wants to comply other than the absolutely stupid. And we know we have plenty of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Your thoughts? I mean, you've heard me talk about this for quite some time.
I'm a pretty optimistic person, so I like to think that they won't fall for it. One of the things that
won't fall for it again.
Yeah. One of the main things that gives me hope is this whole Elon Musk Twitter thing. You hear about that?
There's so much stuff going on with Elon Musk. I kind of lost a little bit of track. I've been so busy this last week.
He just recently bought $2 or $3 billion worth of stock in Twitter, becoming the #1 biggest single person shareholder of Twitter.
Good. Bring back Trump.
And he's been going on Twitter recently, like talking a lot about like stifled speech, and like he's been going after like Elizabeth Warren and like a lot of these other crazy people who are like crazy radical and against free speech. So now that he is the single biggest shareholder in Twitter, he automatically gets a seat on the board. Has obviously huge say. He's already talking about it. He's already teased about like huge like free speech changes coming to Twitter.
Good.
So I think something like that is going to help with the second go around, where obviously like the Hunter Biden thing is starting to come back to
That's all coming. Well, the whole Hillary Clinton DNC dossier thing, that's coming back around.
Trump-Russia collusion thing, like all these things that were stifled, mainly through Twitter and Facebook. I think a lot of it is going to like not be stifled anymore. Hopefully, now that Elon Musk has a huge say in it. So
Sure.
I'm hopefully optimistic. I'll say that.
Well, and you bring up Twitter, and I'm going to let everybody know the Brad Michaels Show is not on Twitter. We are actually on Getter. So you find me Brad Michaels at Getter. That's interesting, and that does change that metric just a little bit. If you've got a guy with the power of an Elon Musk buying up that much stock in Twitter and talking about that type of stuff, that's a good thing. And I'm not saying that they're going to get away with it. I'm saying they're going to try this again because they already got away with it once. The whole COVID scam, it got rid of the big bad orange man. Okay. It got the Democrats into power, and what is it? One seat away from having the Senate.
Yeah.
So they're this close to that power and that control that they want. And I'm telling everybody, you let them get it. You let them expand on that control of the House just a little bit more. And God forbid, if they hit 60 senators to 40, the country will never be the same again.
Yeah, we're lucky we had, Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin
Yeah.
on the Democratic side.
Oh,
that
God.
held out a bunch of like those bills because
They were game changers.
because they were in like very heavy purple states.
Yeah.
So they knew that their constituents wouldn't really be happy with what they're trying to do.
And that is the best thing about it, that we do have, at least we still have some people that are willing to fight back enough for this country and for this government, which I hate saying government because I don't want the government. I'm a libertarian for the most part when it comes to my political ideology. I want less government, I want less taxes and less regulation. Get out of my life, get out of my way, let me do what I got to do to make money. But I'm telling you folks, and I know I'm preaching to the choir again, if you don't go talk to the people that you know and you don't educate them and they continue to vote for Democrats just because they go out there and they're like, well, I saw it on TV and the Democrats are so great because CNN told me that Republicans are evil and blah, blah, blah. If you keep doing that, I'm telling you, don't believe everything you see. Okay? You can't believe everything. Research it for yourself and actually pay attention to what's going on. Because if, God forbid, if the Democrats do get that type of control and power, we were just having a conversation this morning about Venezuela, and I happen to know people. I have friends that, my friend married a Venezuelan woman, they have children. He's a U.S. citizen, so he was able to get his wife here. She's now a U.S. citizen. They got mommy and daddy up here. Then they finally got grandma up here. I've heard the stories from them firsthand, what it was like under Chavez, what it's like under Maduro, the entire change, how the country was such a wealthy country and there was abundance of food, everybody was happy, and then to standing in bread lines. And you have a card. You go on the day that your card says you can go and stand in a bread line, and you're waiting there all day long, and people are complaining out there on the streets. And if they complain, they might get the soldiers come over and arrest them or beat them up or both. You don't talk out about the government. You will go to jail. You stand in line all day for that bread or in the bread line to get your food, your groceries, your allotted groceries. You can't just go buy groceries. You have to go get your allotted amount because the politicians, they have it all. They're just giving you the crumbs. So you stand in line all day, you got your cards, your day, stand in line all day, and then you're almost up there, and then they close the doors because guess what? The food's gone. That will be here in America if the Democrats get their way. They don't tell you the truth. They don't show you everything. They have a little sleight of hand. And it's amazing to me that people year in and year out, generation after generation, have voted for these people and continue to vote for them. Think about it. They lied to you 2 years ago. They lied to you 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 12, 50 years ago. They were lying to you. When are you going to finally, as a Democrat voter who never votes any other way but Democrat, are you that scared of going to work? Are you that scared that the big old bad Republican Party is going to take away your food stamps? Do you really think that the Republicans are going to let you starve? No, they're not. The Democrats will, but they keep telling you the opposite. They lie to you to get you to vote, and then when you do finally raise up and say something to them about, well, wait a minute, you've been promising me for 24 years that this was going to change. What's their line, Victor? Change takes time. Just give us some more time. We're working on it. No, they're not. They're working on taking away every freedom that you ever had, all your God-given freedoms. They're working to take it away from you, and you're letting them. So I know I'm preaching to the choir with most of my audience on this show, but you guys need to be the ones that go out there and say, you need to watch this show. Watch this guy, Brad Michaels. Watch this show. Go out, talk to your friends, talk to your family that votes. I mean, Victor sat here and said that he was the lone Trump guy. There's Uncle Victor, the Trump dude. That was at Thanksgiving, and now his family's finally coming around going, maybe Uncle Victor knew what the heck he was talking about. Victor, you got anything else you want to add to this? I mean, you know where I'm going with this. So there's a whole build-up today to don't believe everything that you're seeing, and then we do have a special announcement.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, I personally can't like encourage people enough to just like do your own research, like listen. Like what I always tell people is listen to what the right has to say, listen to what the left has to say, and what they're both saying in common is usually the truth.
Right.
So if you kind of have to hear it from both sides. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is today. There's no trustworthy media source. You have to go find independent journalists or independent, news anchors or whoever, like different people.
Yeah, because if you're solely getting your news from MSDNC or from CNN or any of those other networks that are strictly the propaganda wings of the Democratic National Committee, you're only getting their side. Yep. And you're not actually, and it's not a news anchor. Jake Tapper is not a news anchor. Jake Tapper is a guy that gets his marching orders from the DNC, and he goes out there and he spews the crap that he spews because he's being told to. He's being told he's just a personality. He's attractive, supposedly. They all are. They're all put out there because they're made for TV. They're not out there to tell you the truth. It's all about this image and making you believe everything that you're seeing. So I'm going to drop the bomb on everybody, so to say, at this point right now, and then I'm going to give you guys a special announcement about an upcoming show on April 20th. But we've been showing footage today in the background here at the Brad Michaels Show, and we started the show with coverage from Ukraine and everything that's going on in Ukraine right now. And then, Victor, how long into the show was it before we actually segued into still war coverage?
Yeah, it was about like 10 minutes after we started playing the footage.
Okay, so we did about 10 minutes of footage that was Ukraine today in 2022. Okay, what's going on over there? Then we segued into it, and everything you've been watching in the background since. And are we kind of like going back and forth here soon?
It ran through once, and then it went to the group, but it ran through all the way through.
Okay. maybe we'll go back in there and show them, here's today, and then what we were showing you for the rest of the show until it cut off was footage from World War II. So I want everybody to take a close look at what we did and realize that basically, in a way, if you weren't paying a whole lot of attention and you didn't catch it, because the footage was really very similar. I mean, you would have had to look close and looked past me to see it. And then you would have been able to tell that, could people look a little different? The clothing, the hairstyles, a lot of stuff was different. The uniforms were different. That's a different looking tank. Quite interesting. So we wanted to do that just to illustrate a point that what you see isn't always necessarily what is the truth or the current news. So big announcement for the Brad Michaels Show. We have, so far we have secured our first big guest, actually first guest and first big guest, political cartoonist A.F. Branco. I talked to him last week on the phone. I just thought we were going to be lining up his appearance on the show, and it was just going to be a quick little phone call, and we were going to be done. It was like talking to my twin political brother. We talked for about 45 minutes. So on April 20th, when we tape that show, the Brad Michaels Show, I will be joined on Zoom by political cartoonist A.F. Branco. So that's our show for today and this week. Victor, you have anything else you want to add?
No, you got it.
All right.
You said it.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the Brad Michaels Show. I'm Brad Michaels. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Brad Michaels Show.